Good morning. It's just after 5 a.m. and here I've got the back of Stan and we're going to be talking about the rotator cuff. And I want to talk about a few considerations before we get into a few movements. Now remember, the rotator cuff, there's four muscles that attach to the blade. There's the infraspinatus, the supraspinatus, and the teres minor, which is in the same general locale, the infraspinatus and the subscapularis. So the big point here is that there's four of them that attach to the blade in various parts, and they also attach to the arm bone. And their job as a rotator is to rotate the arm bone in the shoulder socket, and it acts as a cuff collectively for most ranges of motion to provide some stability of this arm bone in the socket. Now, the piece that's really, really important here, I think anyway, when we're looking at exercises and movements and rehabilitation, is this rotation part to it. And a lot of people, when they, whoops, that might happen. That's awesome. All right, so what might happen is that they get into rotation, but instead of actually doing rotation, they're doing something like this, or they're gripping and bracing in through here, or they're not, like their shoulder blade is moving all over the place when they do the movement. So you want to make sure that you don't want to stick this shoulder blade solid the way that it is with Stan, but you do want it to be still if you're doing specific rotator cuff exercises. So let me bring that to mind, and we'll do a few exercises around that. But also the other piece of it is because the rotator cuff attaches to the blade has to you have to improve the function of the blade to improve the rotator cuff. And there's muscles that attach from the blade onto the spine and onto the rib cage. And if those relationships there aren't good, then you're not going to get a lot of forward progress with your rotator cuff. You are going to get stuck at some point. Okay, so let's look at those two factors. So the first factor was when you're doing rotator cuff exercises, so with the TheraBand, for example, lots of people will get all bracy in here, and they'll do something like, I'm exaggerating it, but I've seen this happen where it's doing that. Now the movement that you're now training is side bending. You're not training rotator cuff. The other thing is they might be here doing this rotator cuff, but their shoulder blade is moving all over the place. Now you don't need to pin, as I mentioned before, you don't need to pin your shoulder blade to your rib cage and set it down and pull it down to your butt, because then you're creating a whole other compensatory patterning. Let your shoulder blade, learn to become aware of your shoulder blade, which we'll do with a little bit of this practice. Learn to become aware of your shoulder blade, and then as you do your rotator cuff exercises, this is Susi doing a Facebook Live with hiccups. Let the shoulder blade be easy, not fixed, and just be aware of what's going on there. The other thing is watch your wrist here. I think I just noticed this in myself when I was doing this motion here. I think I was moving my wrist a little bit. So we don't want to generate the movement with the wrist. We want to make sure we're actually generating the movement with the rotator cuff. Because when we're in recovery, what we're really attempting to do is improve our neuromuscular patterns. And so if what we're doing is we're compensating our way into the movement, then that's the pattern we're helping to create. So if you want to improve your rotator cuff, then work your rotator cuff and then support the pieces that it attaches to, and then let the other parts of your body be at ease. Okay, so that's the first piece of it. What I'd like to now play with is a little bit of of shoulder blade work, because the shoulder blade is so vital to the improvement of your rotator cuff. So I want you to first come into a comfortable sitting position, whether you are kneeling or sitting on a chair. I would not sit like this without anything underneath your hips, because it's just too easy to fall into this kind of position with a posterior pelvic tilt. And now you're trying to fight yourself way back up into vertical. Let's not do that. So you can be in hero. You can also place a block underneath you, but wherever you are, just have it so that you're super easy vertical. Really, really, really easy. Okay? So you also could be in a chair too, right? All right, so now from here, we're going to just do some shoulder rolls. So we're going to take the shoulders up, and then we're going to pull the shoulder blades back to the spine, and then we're going to bring them down. Okay, just like so. Now you might be wondering, what the heck does this have to do with a rotator cuff? Well, as I mentioned, the blades need to be moving easily on your rib cage, because your blades are a part which the rotator cuff muscles attach to. So if you're now starting to use your quadratus lumborum or any other muscles down below in your lower back to try and move those blades down, well then you're helping to create a patterning around your shoulder blades that isn't as ideal because the muscles that pull your blades down are your lower trapezius, and they go from your blade to T12. So that's really where that work is, not down through here. So just notice, place your hands back here as you do this, and it's a little bit difficult when you're moving your blades, but just place your hand back there and notice, does your back want to get all involved? And if it does, then only move your blades as far as that it doesn't want to get involved. That's number one, okay? Then I want you to add your breathing into it. So bring your inhale into the movement up, exhale, the blades come back and then down. So the inhale is coming up, the exhale, blades come back and down. Inhale, it comes up, exhale, the blades come back and down, okay? And so you're just noticing the movement between your breathing and your blades. Okay, now the next piece is I want you to take your arm just in front of you here, and we're going to take the arm across your body. Now, we're not twisting the body, and we're not lifting our shoulder up to our ear. We're making this arm movement directly horizontal. Right? So we're not pinning that blade down on the rib cage. We're not pulling the blades down to our back pockets. We're not side bending to try and brace. We're simply here, and then that arm comes directly across. And then here you can add some rotation. But you're being really light and easy about this, right? Because we want to help the nervous system be at ease. We don't want the nervous system to be all fired up. We want to help some down regulation. We want to train that as the habitual pattern. Okay, great. Good. Now let's come across. We're going to do this. Same thing. And so you're really paying attention. Is this arm bone moving in that shoulder socket? And then away we go. So I find that, and we've had conversations in our Module 3 certification program about rotator cuff and a variety of activities, and we've had some YouTube videos being posted for assessment and really taking a look at the effectiveness of programs. And they're all really, really good programs. The piece that I find tends to be missing is that there's not a whole lot of breathing involved. That's easy. And there's a lot of pinning of the blade. And I get it. I get why someone might want to pin it, but I would rather teach the awareness of where your blade is in space. Because when you get into a variety of motions, whether it's tennis or throwing or like whatever you're doing with your arm and the variety of positions you can have it in, your blade is going to move. So you need to have a functional relationship between your blade and your arm. So if you just teach your body how to pin your blade, then that is what you're teaching your body how to do. That's the communication between your brain and your body. Right? And so we want to support it so that it can get more functional and more activities. Okay, so now we're going to come down onto the floor. And I'm going to place my head on the blanket. Now there's a number of comments coming up on my screen here and notifications of people who are watching, so I can't totally see my head placement. Let me just do this one more time here. Okay, so the idea is you want your head to be more or less in the same line as your spine. So hopefully I am demonstrating that nicely. Like I said, there's a bunch of stuff from Facebook coming up on my screen and I can't quite see that. Okay, so now I'm here and we're just going to take this arm and we're going to reach the arm out. So we're now going to be taking the blade into what we call protraction. So it's sliding along the rib cage towards the screen. And then my blade's going to retract back towards the spine. Okay, so now as you do this, the idea is try not to raise the blade up to your shoulder, nor pull it down to your hips. It's just moving forward and back. Now you put your hand on something like this and do the same thing. And again, the idea here is you're not moving your whole body. That is a movement. There is a movement out there that you do something like this. That's not what I'm teaching you. What I'm teaching you is how to find that retraction and protraction of your blade while this is quiet, because a lot of people who are unable to do that are actually compensating with adding the torso movement. So you want to pay attention to that, like to how you're doing it. So if you even put your hand up even higher on this block, or possibly depending on your body shape, maybe even higher, and just allow yourself to feel for that movement of the blade on the rib cage without utilizing your body into a twist. Now, if you're on carpeted floor, you can use a roller.
Okay, now you'll notice my elbow is not bending, right? I'm not doing this. I'm wanting to work with the blade on the rib cage. Okay, now from here, we can take the arm up to the sky. And then from here, start to rotate through our torso. And then come back. Good, and then bring the arm back down. Arm comes up. Okay, find the rotation in your torso. And then come back. Now, why am I being very specific about rotation here? It's because a lot of people, when they do this movement, they pull their arm back like this, which again is a movement. It's not the one I'm teaching them. And the one I'm teaching is meant to help connect the arm into the torso so that we're helping to improve the connection between the arm and the rib cage. So I'm helping to foster the movement of the rib cage into the twist, because the twist is really about the obliques. It's not about doing this. And so when we want to improve what's going on in the shoulder girdle and the rotator cuff, then we need to look at the other areas of the body that aren't doing the job they're meant to be doing and to support them. Now also notice what's going on at your neck. I think I just caught myself. Is as you take the twist, watch that you don't drop your chin down. So allow your head, don't hold it tight, but just allow your head to follow where your breastbone is and follow where the rotation takes you. Okay, good. Lovely. All right, now come off of that. Just lie flat on your back for a moment. And see if there's any difference between your left side and your right side now, and how your blade is connected to your rib cage, or how your arm, how maybe your rotator cuff feels. Good. And then coming up. And then let's go to the other side. Okay, so now here, you can have your hand on the block, you can have your hand on the block, you can have your hand here. I'm going to place mine here just to demonstrate it. And so the arm is going to come out, and then it's going to come back. So it's the blade moving on the rib cage. So we retract the blade toward the spine, protract the blade away from the spine. And again, what I'm wanting not to have happen is that we're moving through all of here, right? Or we're shortening up this line, right? Because sometimes people will want to bring their blade down like this, or they'll inadvertently bring their blade up like this. So the beauty of your looking in the screen is you can actually see if that's the case. Okay, good. Now from here, taking the arm up to the sky, now we get to move through the rib cage, take that twist, and then bring it back. And then take the twist, you're coming through the rib cage here towards the pelvis, and then coming on back. And again. Watch what goes on in your head and your neck. I think I just may have caught myself again. So it's not this motion through your head and your neck. It's not moving into it too much back bending. It's not side bending. It's rotation, rib cage to pelvis. Now, a lot of people will think that what I just did as an exercise, they're like, how on earth is that related to the rotator cuff? And see, here's the thing. Like I mentioned, if your blade is not moving well in your rib cage, your rotator cuff is not going to get better, because the muscles attached to the blade. The blade is sticky on the rib cage. Then that part of the attachment is not functioning very, very well. So then at some point we need to look at how to improve the way the blades move on the rib cage, which is what these ones were all about here. Okay? All right, so now we're going to come back onto our backs and bring the hands up like so. Index fingers, index finger and thumb tips touch, like you're in the OK symbol. Elbows bend a little bit, and now we're going to bring the arms wide. So imagine you're pulling a thread here and the arms come wide.
Good. And now what I'd like you to do is I'm going to come up to sitting to show this to you, is now I'd like you to do is you're here, and I want you to rotate that arm bone in the socket. So you're doing the exact same movement, but now you're rotating that arm in the socket, and then we're going to take the arm wide like this. So all from this position, we've just changed the orientation of that humerus and moving it wide now. Okay, so there'll be a different experience perhaps. Okay, so you're here, you rotate that arm bone in the socket, and then you bring the arms wide. Okay, lovely. Okay, now from here, just notice what your torso feels like, what your arms feel like. Okay, good, and then come on over, and let's come back into the sitting position. Now you can also do this next one in standing too, if you want. But we're gonna do this, we're just gonna pulse the arms here. So now it's the arm bone moving in the shoulder socket, and then we're gonna flip the hands, and then here. So what we're not doing is we're not doing this, yeah? We're doing arm is moving here. So you get to notice how the tissue in the front of your chest, how that might be supporting you or limiting you. Also notice if you want to do something like this. Okay, then you're going to flip your hands. Now sometimes with rotator cuff issues, you might even feel something down into your elbow or to your wrist. So pay attention to that as well. Lovely. So now just rest your hands down and now notice the arm in the socket. Now, of course, this is a general practice. I can't see any of you that are watching this. So I have no idea how you're practicing it or the impact. The point here is this, is that the rotator cuff is a group of 4 muscles attached between the blade and the arm bone. If that blade is not functioning well, all the rotator cuff stuff in the world that you're going to do, you're not going to get the maximum potential from it. If that blade gets really, really sticky or stuck, or if it's moving all over the place, or if you're gripping with your jaws, side bending, or bracing with your ribs, you're not going to get the benefit from it. So you need to keep in mind those factors when you're working with someone who is working through a rotator cuff issue, or if you yourself are working through a rotator cuff issue. Okay, last one we're going to do is I've got this TheraBand, and we're going to move in wide with the TheraBand. Okay, and my arms are going to be here, and I'm just going to bring the arms wide, just like so. Okay, now again, watch to see what you want to do with this wrist. Watch to notice if your shoulders are going to come up. Watch to see if you want to brace with your shoulder blades down, or hold through your back, or grip through your belly, or use your pinky toe, anything else that you might be thinking about compensating with. I'm going to just bring my hands in a little closer. You choose the color of TheraBand you want to use. All right, lovely, good. And then bring that down. Because different TheraBands, different colors are obviously different tensions, and so you get to decide which one makes the most sense, given the compensatory patterns that you have, given the pattern you want to build, and how you feel, and how your overall coordination patterns. So let's finish up with just some very gentle shoulder rolls again. Now notice what they feel like. Notice what happens as you inhale the shoulders up, retract on the exhale and come down, and what's going on between that and the rest of your body. And as you carry on with your day, just notice what it all feels like. Notice what it feels like through here and through here. And the great thing is that even though today we focused a deep dive on rotator cuff and the blade and the arm bone, you're going to notice that there's probably some relationship for you to other parts of your body too. So pay attention to other things that you are noticing and how you are feeling, and start to put the patterns together about how you can even feel even better. Okay? You enjoy that. We will see you tomorrow for some strengthening work, ease as the foundation of strength. So we'll see you then. Have a great day.